screen. Yes. And then I have to pause my end over here before we actually get fully started. But I would like to welcome everyone to our December meeting. We are blessed to have Senator Jennifer McClellan as our guest speaker today. And I just want everyone to know that Senator McClellan will need to leave a little early because she has an 11 o'clock meeting as well. And so I appreciate all of her time. And so with that, I'm going to share. Yes, we just lost. She's coming back in. So with that, I would like for everybody to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. And let me share this screen before we start. Share. So please stand with me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United
States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. So a quick few things to bring everyone's attention. First of all, order of business for today, please mute your sound when you're not speaking. That will allow for our guest speaker to be the center focus. It's real important that we do that because your screen will pop up in the view. And I just want to remind everyone, we know COVID's a big deal, and I just want to just remind everyone to practice social distance, keep our safe measures. Vaccines are on the way. It looks like there are a lot of good people trying to do the right thing, and we will get through it if we just all do our part. Want to also remind you the special runoff that's coming up in January in Georgia, right on up to the election day. If you want to reach out to the campaigns of Ossoff and Warnock, I highly recommend it. It's warnockforgovernor.com, and I think it's ossoffelection.com for their main things. There is
Dan, I can put it on the.
You did? Yeah, put it into the chat. That would be great.
I will. Yeah.
Also, there's a question about an elected school board. That's been a question that comes up, and it's come up for a while. There seems to be a greater desire for it, but we really want to know what you think as committee members. So please, in the chat, click the survey link. It's just 2 quick questions. How you feel about whether or not we should have an elected school board, and we just want to know what you think. If you still have political signs.
One question.
Yes.
I only saw one question when I did it.
One question is an open-ended question. It says, "What are your thoughts?"
Oh, no.
That's 2 questions.
Okay.
All right. So I appreciate that. All right. So I'm not trying to rush things, but at the same time, I am trying to get to the point where we can hear from Senator McClellan as soon as we can, because she has to leave soon. So our guest speaker is Senator Jennifer McClellan. In June, she announced her candidacy for governor for 2021. There are many great things I could say about Senator McClellan, but the one thing that I know we can all recognize in her is that when she speaks, people listen. And it's because she speaks with confidence, she speaks with grace, she speaks with authority. Senator McClellan is one of the most well-versed people I know. And so I am very excited to have any amount of time with her. And so without further ado, please welcome Senator Jennifer McClellan, candidate for the office of Governor 2021.
Well, thank you, Dan. Thank you, everybody. It is good to see you. I miss seeing you in person, but at least we got to see each other in the rain during the GOTV rally, which seems like 100 years ago, but I think was less than 2 months ago. And I'm going to be really quick in my remarks because I do want to make sure that I get to answer your questions. And as Dan said, I have to drop off around 11 for another meeting with some members of the Vietnamese community that Delegate Kathy Tran had organized. And so I want to make sure there's time for me to hear from you and to answer any questions that you all have. And the good news is, because I have represented parts of Hanover since 2017, and before that kind of adopted Hanover when I was in the House. You all know a lot of my story about what I have done in the General Assembly over the last 15 years. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about what got me into government to begin with, and why I've decided to run for governor, and what I want to focus on. And what really sparked my interest in government was my parents. And as you all have come to learn about me over time, I am a huge history buff, and a lot of my love of history comes from just learning about my own family history. My parents grew up during the Depression in the segregated South. My dad in Nashville, my mom in the Gulf Coast of Mississippi. And listening to their stories, my grandparents' stories, my great-grandparents' stories, I came to understand that government at its best is a force for change and progress, and helping people and solving problems and making people's lives better, especially when, through no fault of their own, they fall on hard times, which my parents lived through the worst of times up until this moment, and this moment is threatening to be as bad as when they went through the Depression. At its worst, government is a force that oppresses some for the benefit of others. And so at 11, I decided I want to do whatever it is I can do to make sure government is that force for change, helping people and solving problems. Now, I didn't know what that meant at 11. But when I went to college, I joined the Young Democrats. That was 30 years ago this year. And ever since, I have been volunteering and organizing to get other people elected, first as a Young Democrat, and making my way through party leadership at the local, state, and national level. But at the same time, I also joined a number of community service organizations, including chartering a chapter of my sorority, Delta Sigma Theta. Over time, getting involved with a number of nonprofit boards and community service organizations focused on helping women, children, and families, focused on telling a complete story of our history here in Virginia by uplifting African-American history and the history of other marginalized communities that were not told in school. And then I decided I wanted to practice law, and I thought I was going to make my impact by being a lawyer to a congressional committee, but it didn't quite work out that way. So I started, I went into private practice, and that's how I thought I was going to make my impact. But in 2005, when my delegate ran for lieutenant governor, Viola Baskerville, she would have been the first woman, African-American woman elected statewide office. She encouraged me to run. A number of my friends started encouraging me to run. And I thought, I really want to be the one making the change, not just electing other people to do it. So I got elected to the House in 2005. I moved over to the Senate after Donald McKeachin got elected to Congress. And I've loved every minute of it, and have focused on improving our education system from early childhood to career, because as you know, both of my parents were educators, my grandparents, my great-grandparents, they helped me understand that education is the key to economic opportunity. It is the key to thriving, healthy communities. And as we have learned in the past 4 years, it really is the key to a thriving, healthy democracy. I focus on expanding access to affordable quality healthcare, both on the insurance side, but also making sure that people have access to care on a wide variety of healthcare issues. I've focused on modernizing Virginia laws to reflect the problems and business models and employment situations of today. And I've worked, for example, to expand worker protections to domestic workers. I worked to remove barriers to solar energy and wind energy so that we can shift to 100% electric generation from clean renewable sources. I've focused on the constituent side, just helping people who have problems, because I understand when people call my office, whether it's as a state senator or they call a state agency, it's because they have a problem. And so in addition to the policies I've put in place, I've really focused on just making sure that we are here to help solve problems on a wide variety of issues. I began to think about running for governor last year because, frankly, while Virginia had been doing well, too many of our communities and too many individuals have been left behind. And I was frustrated that a number of issues that I've been fighting on, and education funding is one of them, unless it's in the governor's budget, unless the governor makes it a priority, and unless there are people in place in the agencies that make it a priority, it's harder to get done. And so that's when I started to think about running for governor, but COVID really sealed it. Because COVID has impacted all of our lives and all of our systems, and we have got to recover from this crisis we face, not just the health pandemic and the economic crisis, but this reckoning with racial inequity and also a growing lack of faith among people that government can solve their problems. And so I am running for governor to focus on a recovery that rebuilds our economy, that rebuilds our healthcare and economic safety nets, that rebuilds our education system in a way that addresses inequity and in a way that includes the people as part of the solution, not just bringing more voices to the table to affect policy, but take the table out to our communities to make sure that we are listening to diverse points of view and that we are a government that is truly by, of, and for the people. We have heard that since we were kids, but government is only as good as the people who participate. And for much of our history, many people weren't allowed to participate. And even if legally they can participate, sometimes the system is so confusing or hard to access that they really don't have an opportunity to participate in the development of policy. So that has all compelled me to run. But what definitely sealed it for me is I'm tired of fighting the same fights that my parents, my grandparents, and my great-grandparents fought. And I cannot look my children, my 10-year-old son and my 5-year-old daughter, I can't look them in the eye and say, I did everything in my power to keep them from fighting those fights if I am not willing to step up and do everything I possibly can to fight those fights so they don't have to. So that's why I'm running, and that's why I ask for your support. This election is going to be historic, but I'm not running to make history. I am running to build the future Virginia I know we can build coming out of these crises, but it's going to have to be a movement that you are a part of. So I'm here to ask for your vote. I'm here to ask for your support. I'm here to ask for your volunteer efforts. And if you're so inclined, your contributions to join Team McClellan and help build the future Virginia that I know we can build if we work together. So with that, I'm gonna stop talking and take any questions that you all have.
And with this, guys, please feel confident to unmute and speak. Senator McClellan, that was a great speech, great opening. I greatly appreciate all of those lines. And yeah, I feel the same way about you. Can't look my children in the eye and say that I've done anything right if I haven't done all that I can. So I'll open up the floor. I do have questions, but I'll open up the floor to other people first.
Senator McClellan, thank you for being here and for all you do for the state and Hanover. I have a specific question. I don't know if you can answer this or not, but the Virginia Department of Labor and Industry standards, the emergency standards that were enacted over the summer, I believe expire in January 22nd. If that's correct, do you anticipate that they will be extended?
Thank you for that. I do expect they be extended. I know there was a legislative effort during the special session to modify them, and I fought against that. It wouldn't surprise me if there's an effort to do so in the regular session. Yes, they will be extended. I'm pretty confident for as long as we are in this sort of health pandemic.
Okay, thank you. That's great news. I think they're critically important for workers right now. Thank you.
100% agree, Kathy. Thank you.
Hey Jennifer, it's Tom Hicks. How you doing?
Good. How are you, Tom?
Hey, the Democrats have been in control now for a couple of years, got a lot of really good legislation passed. So if you are the next governor, what do you see as the 2 or 3 biggest pieces of legislation that you'll push for that we haven't already achieved?
There are, I think it's going to be slightly different because COVID has transformed everything. So I think with the budget that I put forward, it's maintaining the progress we've already had, but adjusting it to reflect how COVID has impacted our communities, our schools, and our lives. And so I think the number one issue for me will be making sure that we have a budget that fully invests in our educational needs, including how COVID has changed those needs. That frankly includes expanding access to broadband and investing in broadband infrastructure. That includes the equity fund and the equity component that the Department of Education had recommended. That includes fully funding their recommended standards of quality, which I put in a bill to do last year, and I'm going to put in a bill to do this year. And if it doesn't get passed, I'm going to do it as governor. It includes continuing to expand access to Medicaid. We had made some progress expanding Medicaid to provide a dental benefit and also to cover mothers through the first full year after pregnancy, because that's when the most maternal deaths occur. So those are a couple of examples, but I think making sure that we are implementing the progress we made this year in the way we intended it. So I got a state-based health exchange bill passed. The governor's going to need to implement it in a way that ensures that we are continuing to provide quality health insurance through the exchange more efficiently than we have through the federal exchange, maintaining access to Medicaid. And I think the third area is making sure we are investing in our small businesses and those businesses impacted by COVID to help them recover. Some of our businesses are thriving, but there are others that are just crushed and on the brink of closing down. And they are going to need help from the state stabilizing. And it's everything from childcare providers to restaurants, hospitality. We are going to have to make sure that we are keeping, stabilizing them and then helping them grow. And I think those are going to be the top priorities that I have to focus on as governor.
It sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question about the broadband access. I've been in Virginia since 1991, and I've been hearing about this broadband access for the last 30 years or whatever. I have 2 sets of families here that live with us, live near us. One had to go back to school because they have absolutely no broadband access and they cannot do virtual in their house at all. The other one refused to send her kids back to school and they have spotty access at best. And while I'm talking to you, across my screen is coming, your Wi-Fi is unstable, your internet connection is unstable. I know they just did some type of, I read it, some type of another initiative, study or whatever about this broadband, but especially in this time of COVID, when everything is online, everything, you buy tickets, you buy this, you buy stuff at the store, you go to school, you work from line. This is absolutely horrible. And I wanted to know what actually can be done instead of another study or determination or whatever about the board.
Thank you, Colette, for that question. It really boils down to money. There are two issues in the areas, and it's mostly rural areas, not exclusively, that are not connected. It's because they are the most expensive areas to connect. And what we need to do, and frankly, we need the federal government to step in and do it, but barring them, we need to focus on it at the state level, investing in the infrastructure, build out the infrastructure to serve those parts of the state that are not served. In the areas that are served, it's a capacity issue. Internet usage has exploded increasingly over time, particularly given how many devices people have, et cetera. And so we need to make sure that there are investments in capacity. And as technology changes, it allows more capacity that we are getting that technology out. And so at the state level, most of our investment has been focused on grants to local governments that have a private partner to expand broadband. But we need more than one model. There's some in other states. The District of Columbia is a good example of this. The localities themselves have decided to roll out that infrastructure themselves. And so if we have localities here that want to do that, we should be able to support them in doing that. And so, but really it's just that we need to invest in the infrastructure to build out the areas that aren't served, and very expensive, which is why, I think the federal government is going to include more broadband funding with the new administration coming in. It's not a partisan issue. So I have some confidence that will happen, but we also need to make those investments at the state level.
Senator McClellan, can I just chime in on that very thing? Because you said the words that I was really hoping you would say, and I'm so glad you did and thankful. They have opened up at the state level, at least for the body grant, to allow localities to apply. No guarantee that they'll get them or anything, but at least they get to apply. And I just want to give a small example of here in Ashland. We would be considered middle mile. We're not necessarily rural, but if we were able to qualify, which currently we don't because of so many other models, and I know other people need it, so I'm not suggesting that we get it first. But there's a data center in Hanover County, and if we could connect that data center to the current fiber line we have, for example, and we could bring in another data center, that would actually create the capacity that the county would need. So I throw that out there because I think on paper, sometimes localities like us look like, well, you already have it, you don't need it. But if we get a better access or a better capacity, as you say, that actually would help the rural communities. So I just want to throw that out there. So I appreciate the words you said. You said everything I wanted to hear. And so I appreciate that.
Thanks, Dan.
Senator McClellan, Mary Ann Pugh, we are, as a nation, extremely polarized, more so than ever in my lifetime. And here in Virginia, we see that as people who still think the vote was stolen in the presidential election, and people who are actively resisting the governor's mitigation recommendations for COVID. How do you reach out to those people, and how would you try to bring them into the fold?
Mary Ann, I think the first step is just showing up and talking to them. And I know that there's some people who will never agree with me on every issue. And there's some people, I can't force them to believe in science. But I can show up and talk to them and listen to them, more importantly, which I've had to do, for 14 years in the minority party. I have had to listen and try to understand where someone else is coming from, why they believe what they believe, and meet them where they are to pull them closer to the position that I want them to go. And it's really the same with anybody that doesn't agree with you. All of our political beliefs stem from our life experiences and what we have learned and what we know. And so making sure that I am showing up to learn and listen and meet people where they are. At the end of the day, we all pretty much want the same thing. We all want to live in safe, healthy communities. We all want our kids to get a good education. We want to know that we're going to have access to a job that pays well, and that when we get sick, we can go to the hospital, get good care, and not be bankrupt. And so if we start from those areas, that's the first step. And the second step is to respectfully share my perspective and a different perspective. Now, again, some people I'll never be able to reach, but I try, and when I can't, it's you move on. But showing everyone respect and dignity, even sometimes when they don't show it to you, is the core of who I am. You know, my dad was a pastor, so that's the core of who I am as a person. I don't know how to be any other way, and I will be that kind of governor. That's not to say, let me just, because I want to make this really clear. That is not to say you don't call out hatred and bigotry when you see it. Let me be clear with that. There's some things you can't show respect to. And you got to call.
Yeah, it's a difficult process for trying to calm the temperature. And I think good leaders can cool things down in ways that can at least temper some of that.
And if my kids have taught me anything, part of it is staying calm and cool yourself.
Exactly. Yes. Good point.
Yeah. Any other questions? I see
Senator
John.
Yeah, just more of a thank you for your support for municipalities, particularly small municipalities like Ashland on the Central Virginia Transportation Authority. Counties have the power in this state, and your involvement in helping keeping a level playing field for the city and the town was much appreciated. So just wanted to comment.
My pleasure. Thank you for that.
This is Tom again. I saw, Terry McAuliffe jumped in the race, Jennifer, and I saw your response to his education initiatives that came out. I thought that was very, very well written. You want to say anything about that?
Thanks, Tom. Sure. I am glad to see Governor McAuliffe supporting efforts that I've been working on, in La Chérizière, I've been working on already. And so the proposal that he put out was very similar to legislation that Delegate Aird and I put in this January. We're putting it again for the upcoming session, that fully funds the Board of Education's recommendations, everything from teacher raises to staffing levels. And so the $2 billion investment that he announced was almost identical to what we were already working on. So glad to see we're on the same page there. There's more we need to do though. On the funding side, short term, we need to lift the cap on support personnel that was put in place under Governor McDonald to balance the budget. And as a result, the number of assistant principals, nurses, counselors, sort of the support, like not the instructional personnel, but the other personnel that you need to make sure that students have everything they need to learn. The localities were left fully funding that. And in many cases, that meant you had fewer people doing those positions in our schools. So for at least 2 years, and I'm going to do it again if it's not in the governor's budget, I've put in an amendment to lift that cap. Longer term, we need to fully restructure how we fund K-12 education, because the local composite index formula used to fund it now is just frankly broken. And then what I didn't put out, but I will give you all a sneak peek to, is we also need to just completely restructure how we are teaching and what we are teaching. We started this through a high school redesign where the Board of Education said, what is the profile of what a 21st century Virginia graduate should look like? And then let's go redesign high school to produce that student with those skills. But what we need to do is say, first we got to update it because times have changed, not just because of COVID, but with technology and new types of business models that may not have even existed then. So we need to update that and then redesign early childhood education through probably year 20, the community college, the first 2 years of higher ed, to produce that student, and redesign the education workforce pipeline to be sure we're producing the educators to produce that student. And we're focused on not just what are the skills you need today, what is the curricula you need to know today, but teaching critical thinking, how to learn, and adaptability, so that as technology continues to change and the skills you need may change when you're an adult, you have the ability to learn new skills more easily. And so that is overall my focus on education. And again, I've been focused on this, and particularly the equity component and giving our teachers and our schools what they need to teach since day one, coming into the General Assembly as a delegate. And frankly, that's a big reason why I'm running for governor, because the governor sets the agenda through the budget, through the appointments, of how we're going to improve our education system. And then the final thing that I didn't say in my response, but I am definitely focused on, we got to make sure our education system reflects the diversity of the kids that are being educated. It does not right now. It does not. Even the top leadership of the Board of Education is all white. And yet a majority of the students in our public schools are students of color. And that's not limited to the Department of Education, but I am committed to making sure that our government and all of its services reflect the full diversity of the people we serve.
Thank you for that.
Thank you, Tom.
I can appreciate what you are saying as a not too long ago, but when the SOLs came in, then it became teaching to the test, basically. Yes. Because you had, no matter what your children look like, you were held to a certain benchmark that you had to achieve. So, or otherwise you were penalized for not achieving that. And a lot of things were not taken into consideration, like the different situations where the children came from, their home lives or anything like that. So I can really appreciate, because what we really did do was produce people that don't think. They just basically go to the point where it's like, well, now what do I do? I don't know what to do.
I think we lost Colette, but she's exactly right. She's exactly right.
And yeah,
not a question. I'm sorry, good.
No, it's fine. Go ahead, Jim.
I was going to say, it's not a question, but just thank you, Jen, for running. I strongly support your candidacy. I think it's time for generational leadership change, and we need thoughtful, good people doing that. And so I'm just very appreciative of you putting yourself forward.
Thank you, Jim.
Yeah.
Well, and let me say, anyone, that's a good segue to this. Anyone who is willing to officially endorse, and I see a couple of people, Morgan has officially endorsed, Faye Pritchard. Anyone interested in officially endorsing, thank you, John. We can definitely get you in the pipeline to do that. I think Nicole from my staff is on here, but you can either reach out to the campaign. We're going to put in the chat all the ways to reach us. The website is jennifermcclellan.com. My email is jlm@jennifermcclellan.com, which is just my initials. Everybody else on the staff, it's their first name at jennifermcclellan.com. So if you're willing to endorse, if you're willing to volunteer, and I heard Dan say at the beginning that if you want to volunteer on the Georgia races to contact those campaigns, you can also contact mine because we're organizing some GOTV efforts for the Georgia runoff ourselves. If you're willing to donate, if you're willing to do a meet and greet, campaigning in COVID is different. We can't do the big crowds and we can't do canvassing in the way we're used to. And so I'm going to need grassroots support. I'm going to need sort of peer-to-peer validators. And we are going to invest in a very robust field program, a very robust community organizing program, and a very robust communications program that gets my message, that gets my record, my background out in every form of communication possible. And so if you're willing to help with any of that, then you can either reach out through the website or to me or one of my staff directly. And we will definitely put you to work, and we'll have a lot of fun while we're doing it.
Well, thank you, Senator McClellan, for being on this call. I know we could probably ask and interact with you for much more, but I want to at least give you a 15-minute break before you have your next meeting that you're going on to. That could be a challenge. I just wanted to comment, the fact that we have people coming in and out of our meeting is the concern with broadband. Like, I think it's just proof that, and it's everybody. It's people from cities, people from rural areas, people from it's everybody. So, and I love the fact that you mentioned the capacity, because that's really the heart of it all. So I appreciate you coming out. I appreciate all that you're doing. And yeah, like she said, if you'd like to endorse, please reach out directly to the campaign. And are there any closing remarks you want to give, Senator McClellan, before we head out?
Yeah, I think just a thank you. Again, I always enjoy coming to Hanover and visiting with you all, and look forward to being with you in person again. And as we are going into the 2021 session, and as your senator, whether you live in the 9th or not, I'm going to claim you. It's going to be more difficult to get in touch with us because we're not going to be. The Pocahontas building isn't going to be open. I'm not sure if the Capitol is going to be open. The Senate will be meeting virtually in the Science Museum, the House virtually all together. But please feel free to reach out to me on issues for the General Assembly session. And then in the meantime, and afterwards, I just would love your support as we really have to work together. And I alluded to this earlier, and I keep thinking about my parents, and particularly my dad, because he was old enough to remember before the Depression and after. And leadership matters. The leadership you have in the middle of a crisis and the leadership you have recovering out of it really matters, not just on policy. And I promise you that the center of my policy will always be, how can I help every Virginian come out of this crisis? But it also matters just the leadership you bring to bring people together. And as many things as there were to be disappointed in Donald Trump about, what I was most disappointed in is that when all of us were in the midst of the most difficult year of our life, we didn't have a leader who could say, we will get through this together. And I promise you that I will be a governor who, no matter what, will say, we're in this together. In good times, we will celebrate together. But in hard times, we will work through our problems together. And you will be at the center of my priorities. Every day I will wake up and say, how can I help Virginians today? And how can I improve their lives? And with your help, I will be able to do that. So just thank you all from the bottom of my heart for the support you've always given me, and for the support I hope you give me going forward.
Thank you, Senator McClellan. If people want to unmute, give her a round of applause. I think her work has been great. And I greatly appreciate your leadership, Senator McClellan. That is awesome. Thank you. I want to go ahead and go through the rest of our agenda, which might be short. And again, I don't know if Senator McClellan can stay on for a minute or two, or if she has to get off, but I know she has a meeting at 11. And I just wanted people to know that she's been working very hard.
Well, thank you. I can stay for maybe about 3 more minutes, and then I'll need to jump off to make sure I can get on my other one.
Okay. All right. So we've created a team store where you can buy Hanover swag. There's been some hiccups in that and in the checkout area. And so please be on the lookout for another email that comes out that says, hey, we fixed the errors with the checkout. And I was planning on putting the link to it in the chat, but since we're still having checkout hiccups, we're going to hold off on that. But just so people know how it's going, in order for this first round, we're offering discounted rates for the first round of this team store so that people can buy the swag as inexpensively as possible. It'll all be delivered to my house, and then I and a few other people will hand deliver it to the people around Hanover County. So just be on the lookout for that. Women's coffee, there's not going to be a women's coffee due to the holiday season, they're taking a break. The men's forum, they're not having one this December, but they have a really interesting guest speaker coming up for January. Chance or Don, did one of you want to speak to that?
Go ahead, Chance.
Hello. Oh, not again. Is this better?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So I think everyone already knows this, but because of the holidays, we're not going to be having a men's forum in December. But on January 27th, we will have as our guest speaker, Caitlin Hodge, the COVID response team leader from the Chickahominy Health District. And she is going to talk to us about COVID and goings on here in Hanover County.
And by that time, vaccine will be out, so we may get some indication of when and where we can get it, hopefully.
Yes, and that's the fourth Thursday of the month, is that right? Wednesday. Fourth Wednesday at 7 p.m.?
Yes.
Excellent. We'll have more information on that coming out in the newsletter, so people don't need to jot it down yet. Just watch out for the newsletter. But that will be an interesting speaker. We have one new member to vote in, Melissa Whitby. And do I have a motion to accept the new member?
So move.
A second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? All right, we have a new member in. We're getting closer to our 300 membership again. Any new business to come before us? All right, with that, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved. So moved.
All right, we're moved, so we are adjourned.